The Council had always dismissed humanity, viewing Earth as a backwater planet with primitive technology and chaotic governance, a species not worth their time or attention. Yet when their fleets first appeared in orbit around Sol, they brought the arrogance of certainty that victory would be swift and easy, believing that humans would crumble under the might of their combined forces without so much as a fight. But they underestimated the patience, cunning, and unity that had been quietly cultivated across centuries of conflict and survival on a world that had never been given the luxury of weakness. And when the first strike came, humanity did not scatter or surrender, but executed a series of countermeasures that confounded the Council's intelligence networks, revealing a network of orbital defenses, hidden fleets, and cyber warfare capabilities that far exceeded anything the Council had anticipated. And as their initial assaults were met with precision interception, calculated ambushes, and electronic disruption that rendered their advanced weaponry temporarily blind and ineffectual, panic began to ripple through the Council chambers, diplomats scrambling to reinterpret their intelligence and military commanders desperately trying to re-establish control over scattered fleets. While on Earth, the people had united not only militarily but culturally, every nation contributing its best scientists, engineers, and strategists to a coordinated response that had been decades in the making. And yet this was only the beginning, for humanity had not revealed its full arsenal, holding back the most sophisticated technologies and tactics for maximum impact, allowing the Council to believe they had suppressed the planet's capabilities when, in truth, they were luring them deeper into a trap. And as the first wave of human counterattacks tore through alien supply lines and communication nodes with surgical precision, the Council realized that their misjudgment had been catastrophic, and humanity, far from being an inferior species, demonstrated an adaptability and ingenuity that seemed almost alien in itself, employing asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, and guerrilla tactics in space and on colonized worlds that left entire fleets isolated, stranded, and vulnerable, while simultaneously securing alliances with previously neutral civilizations who had long been skeptical of Council authority, but now saw that humans were not only formidable but honorable and strategic, able to coordinate multi-system campaigns without the political infighting that crippled larger empires, and as battle after battle unfolded with humanity consistently outmaneuvering the supposedly superior forces, the narrative that humans were weak, backward, and easily dominated began to crumble under the weight of undeniable evidence. Civilians and soldiers alike contributing to the war effort in ways that reshape entire theaters of conflict, the Council's own. Members whispering in fear as they debated contingency plans. Yet even with these triumphs, humanity continued to operate with restraint and precision, aware that their goal was not mere destruction but the demonstration of skill, strategy, and the consequences of underestimating a species whose very survival had depended on adaptability. And as news of victory spread across both human and alien populations, a sense of awe mingled with dread began to permeate Council space, for the humans had turned a war they were expected to lose into a masterclass in coordinated strategy, resilience, and raw ingenuity. And even in these early stages of conflict, it became painfully clear that the galaxy had misjudged them gravely, and that every future engagement will be measured against the terrifying standard humanity had just set, a standard built not on hubris but on centuries of preparation, observation, and the instinctive understanding that when cornered, humans did not simply fight, they mastered the war itself. The Council, now shaken to its core by the unexpected resilience and tactical brilliance of humanity, scrambled to reassess every assumption they had ever held about the human species. Their war councils filled with tension as fleets that were supposed to overwhelm Earth instead faced ambush after ambush, entire squadrons disappearing into zones where human ships appeared almost out of nowhere. And as each engagement unfolded, the aliens began to realize that humans had mastered not just combat, but deception, logistics, and timing in ways that rivaled even the most sophisticated galactic civilizations, with orbital defenses synchronized to planetary sensors that anticipated attack vectors and civilian infrastructure converted into adaptive support systems that kept supply chains unbroken despite relentless assault. And on Earth, human commanders coordinated multi-front operations with uncanny efficiency, blending traditional tactics with unconventional innovations, from gravity, manipulating projectiles that forced enemy vessels into chaotic orbits to electromagnetic pulse arrays that disabled alien fleets in seconds, all while maintaining morale through clear communication, disciplined units, and a shared understanding that their fight was as much for survival as for proving the galaxy had been blind to their potential. And as humans began to reclaim contested space stations and liberate captured colonies, the Council's envoys grew frantic, sending urgent messages, demanding ceasefires, treaties, or negotiations, only to be met with precisely timed counteroffensives that showcase humanity's mastery over both strategy and diplomacy, turning what was expected to be a simple rebellion or containment into a full demonstration of human superiority. While back on Earth, scientists had deployed advanced AI-driven command systems that anticipated enemy movements before they occurred, and engineers retrofitted captured alien technology to enhance human weapons and defenses, creating a feedback loop of innovation that made every subsequent encounter increasingly disastrous for Council forces. And as the aliens began to panic, internal divisions within the Council emerged, factions arguing whether to retreat, surrender, or escalate, unaware that every choice played into human hands. For the humans had anticipated overconfidence, despair, and indecision, crafting operations that exploited psychological weaknesses as ruthlessly as physical ones. And as entire sectors fell under human control, news transmissions across the galaxy carried reports of defeats that were both humiliating and awe-inspiring. Alien commanders forced to admit that their own arrogance and failure to respect humanity had led them into a war they were fundamentally unprepared for. And even in the midst of relentless combat, human leaders emphasized precision over destruction, restraint over vengeance, teaching their allies and enemies alike that true mastery in war was not measured in casualties alone, but in the ability to shape outcomes deliberately. And by the time the first major Council fleet was entirely neutralized, the message was clear. The species they had deemed inferior had turned conflict into an art form, a masterclass that would be studied for generations, leaving the galaxy forever aware that humanity was not to be underestimated, and that every assumption about weakness, simplicity, or compliance had been catastrophically wrong. With the Council reeling from successive defeats, humanity shifted its focus from mere defense to a proactive strategy that combined tactical brilliance with psychological warfare, deploying elite strike teams capable of infiltrating alien command stations, disrupting communication networks, and turning enemy technology against its own forces, while simultaneously securing neutral systems as allies, demonstrating a combination of force, precision, and diplomacy that left even skeptical civilizations in awe. And as the first report of captured Council officers spread across the galaxy, the narrative of human inferiority collapsed entirely, replaced by a dawning recognition that humans were not only adaptable and resilient, but capable of feats that rival the most advanced species, their ships maneuvering through asteroid fields, ion storms, and gravity wells with a level of coordination and skill that alien fleets struggled to comprehend, and on planetary surfaces, human soldiers use inventive tactics that combined environmental manipulation, guerrilla strategies, and advanced combat technologies, transforming ordinary landscapes into deadly traps for invading forces, all while maintaining minimal collateral damage and preserving civilian populations, a level of calculated restraint that contrasted sharply with the Council's reckless aggression. And as humanity continued to win decisive engagements, entire Council factions began to fracture under the pressure. Debates erupting over whether to negotiate, retreat, or escalate, each decision delayed only to give humans more time to consolidate their gains, refine strategies, and prepare the next phase of the campaign. And as the galaxy watched, human leaders orchestrated multi-system offensives that synchronized orbital bombardments with ground operations, electronic warfare, and diplomatic overtures, creating a multi-layered conflict that no alien intelligence could predict or counter. And even as alien generals scrambled to understand the speed, adaptability, and ingenuity of human forces, humans were already leveraging captured technology, incorporating alien engineering into their own designs to create hybrid vessels and weapons that blurred the line between offense and defense, turning previous Council advantages into liabilities. And throughout this escalating war, human crews displayed an unshakable resolve, coordinating operations across time zones, star systems, and even hostile environments with a level of cohesion that seemed almost impossible for a species previously underestimated. And as the first Council worlds fell under human control without mass destruction, the psychological impact on alien populations was profound, shaking their confidence, sowing fear, and forcing entire sectors to reconsider their loyalty to the Council, while humanity, far from exploiting fear for domination, used their victories to demonstrate honor, intelligence, and strategic foresight, proving that the war was not only about survival but about showing the galaxy the lethal consequences of misjudging an underestimated species. And by the time the third major battle concluded, it was evident that humans had transformed the war from a simple conflict into a comprehensive lesson in strategy, resilience, and the devastating efficacy of combining intellect, technology, and unity, leaving the Council to confront a reality that their previous intent for humanity had not only been wrong but catastrophic, and that the very definition of inferiority had been permanently rewritten across the stars. As the war progressed, humanity's reputation spread like wildfire across the galaxy, turning what the Council had assumed would be a short campaign into a protracted lesson in the dangers of underestimating a species whose cunning, unity, and resilience were only beginning to be revealed. And with each successive engagement, humans refined their strategies, employing feints, decoys, and synchronized multi-theater assaults that left alien fleets overextended, confused, and increasingly demoralized, while human engineers retrofitted captured enemy technology to create hybrid vessels that combined speed, firepower, and stealth in unprecedented ways, giving them the ability to strike with precision anywhere the Council held assets. And on colonized worlds, human forces established fortified positions that leveraged local terrain, orbital support, and rapid response units, turning defensive battles into offensive masterpieces where aliens were lured into traps that showcased not only humanity's tactical ingenuity but also their adaptability and patience. And beyond the battlefield, humans leveraged intelligence, networks, and espionage to sow disinformation, disrupt supply chains, and turn the Council's own allies against them, while simultaneously negotiating alliances with previously neutral species, demonstrating a level of diplomacy, foresight, and ethical calculation that contrasted sharply with the Council's reckless expansionism, and as entire sectors were reclaimed. The psychological effect on alien commanders was devastating, their initial arrogance replaced by fear, doubt, and confusion, as reports arrived of humans outmaneuvering superior fleets, intercepting communications before messages were sent, and exploiting weaknesses in alien command hierarchies that had gone unnoticed for centuries, while on Earth and allied worlds, scientists and strategists continued to innovate at a pace that left the galaxy scrambling to keep up, introducing adaptive shields, energy-efficient propulsion systems, and AI-driven combat coordination that allowed smaller human forces to defeat numerically superior fleets with astonishing efficiency. And as battles raged across star systems, human leaders emphasized precision, restraint, and coordinated action, ensuring that their victories were not hollow but demonstrated mastery over both strategy and the moral dimensions of war. And with each campaign, humans revealed new layers of capability: orbital defenses that reconfigured in real time, fleets capable of multi-vector assaults, and planetary forces that anticipated alien tactics before they were executed, all while maintaining cohesion, morale, and discipline in a manner that alien species could scarcely comprehend. And by the time the Council attempted to launch what they hoped would be a decisive counteroffensive, it became painfully clear that humans had already anticipated every possible outcome, turning the attack into a trap of unparalleled scale and complexity. And when the Council's fleet was shattered in a single coordinated engagement, the lesson was undeniable. Humanity had not only survived the war but turned it into an unparalleled demonstration of tactical brilliance, technological mastery, and strategic foresight, leaving the galaxy to reconsider everything it had assumed about Earth and the species that had long been dismissed as inferior. By this stage of the war, humanity had transformed from presumed underdog into the decisive force that the galaxy could neither ignore nor underestimate. And as the Council's remaining fleets attempted to regroup and counterattack, they discovered that human strategy had evolved beyond conventional tactics into a level of foresight and coordination that turned every encounter into a calculated demonstration of superiority. With multi-system operations synchronized across light years through advanced quantum communications, allowing human commanders to anticipate alien maneuvers, deploy reinforcements instantaneously, and adapt to unforeseen threats with remarkable agility, while human engineers continued to innovate under pressure, producing hybrid ships, adaptive weapon systems, and battlefield AI that made smaller units exponentially more effective. And on occupied worlds, human forces implemented clever counterinsurgency operations that neutralized alien occupation forces, without unnecessary destruction, winning not only battles but the trust and support of local populations who began actively aiding the human war effort. While alien morale collapses, reports circulated of entire fleets trapped, cut off from reinforcements, or turned against each other by misinformation campaigns executed with precision and subtlety, and as humans continued to reclaim key territories, they demonstrated an uncanny ability to blend offensive power with defensive ingenuity, launching calculated strikes that drew enemy forces into ambushes, while leaving escape routes for civilians and maintaining an ethical standard that alien commanders could not reconcile with their own brutal methods. And across the galaxy, neutral civilizations began to take notice, offering resources, safe harbors, and intelligence to human forces. Recognizing that humanity was not only militarily formidable but strategically wise, honorable, and capable of leadership, and in these campaigns, humans displayed an almost prescient understanding of alien psychology, exploiting overconfidence, fear, and internal rivalries to turn seemingly impossible scenarios into decisive victories, while human political and military leaders coordinated global and interstellar strategies with such clarity that even long-term planning over decades of conflict became executable in real time, blending past experience with innovative thinking to predict outcomes with astonishing accuracy. And as entire alien colonies were liberated or absorbed into a human-led coalition, the Council faced the unthinkable. The very systems and territories they had assumed would be easy to control now stood united under human guidance, and the scale of their misjudgment became painfully evident, as every battle, ambush, and diplomatic maneuver executed by humanity served as a lesson in the dangers of hubris, miscalculation, and underestimating a species whose resolve, creativity, and coordination had not only matched but exceeded that of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And by the conclusion of this stage of the conflict, the narrative was unmistakable. Humanity had transformed what was expected to be a humiliating war into a comprehensive masterclass in strategy, leadership, and the devastating consequences of dismissing a species that had been preparing, evolving, and observing for centuries, leaving the Council force to confront the stark reality that their arrogance had sown the seeds of their own defeat. With the Council on the brink of collapse, humanity escalated its campaigns not out of vengeance, but with calculated precision, exploiting every weakness in alien coordination, supply lines, and technology while maintaining strict discipline and restraint that showcased not only military mastery but strategic ethics. And as human forces advanced into previously untouchable sectors, they deployed advanced reconnaissance drones capable of mapping enemy fleets and planetary defenses in real time, allowing commanders to execute strikes with surgical accuracy that neutralize high-value targets while minimizing collateral damage. While on the diplomatic front, humans leveraged every victory to build alliances, secure neutral systems, and isolate the Council politically, demonstrating a combination of tactical and political genius that left rival species both awed and fearful. And as battles raged across multiple star systems, human units executed complex maneuvers with the precision of clockwork, coordinating orbital bombardments, planetary landings, and rapid response interventions simultaneously, while engineers and scientists captured Council technology into hybrid systems that outperformed their original designs, giving humans the ability to strike at impossible angles, deploy decoy fleets that sow confusion, and manipulate energy and propulsion in ways previously unimaginable. And on colonized worlds, human leadership focused on restoring governance, infrastructure, and security, turning former battlegrounds into functioning, loyal societies almost overnight, while alien populations and soldiers began to understand that humanity's approach to war was not only devastating but intelligent, moral, and inexorably effective, leveraging not brute force alone but intellect, adaptability, and foresight. And as the Council's remaining high command convened to plan a final stand, human forces had already anticipated every possible maneuver, positioning fleets, command centers, and covert strike teams to ensure that any resistance would be neutralized swiftly and efficiently. And in every engagement, human troops displayed ingenuity, resilience, and unity that confounded alien expectations, whether it was reproposing environmental hazards into battlefield advantages, executing ambushes across multiple orbital planes, or coordinating simultaneous land and space assaults, while their ability to adapt in real time allowed them to turn surprise attacks into predictable victories. And as the final major confrontations approached, the Council was forced to acknowledge in fear and disbelief that humanity had not only mastered the war but transformed it into a demonstration of their species' full potential, reshaping the political, military, and cultural landscape of the galaxy in ways that no alien power had anticipated, proving beyond any doubt that the humans they had dismissed as inferior had become the ultimate arbiters of interstellar conflict, and that their underestimation of Earth and its people had set in motion consequences from which the galaxy itself would never fully recover. The final stage of the war saw humanity fully asserting its dominance not through indiscriminate destruction, but through the precise application of strategy, diplomacy, and technological mastery, as the remaining Council forces attempted one last desperate counteroffensive only to find themselves systematically outmaneuvered at every turn, with human fleets coordinating multi-system strikes at isolated enemy units, disrupted command hierarchies, and captured critical assets while simultaneously securing civilian populations and liberated colonies. And as the Council's diplomats pleaded for mercy, humans negotiated terms that reinforced both their ethical superiority and tactical brilliance, demonstrating that victory could be decisive without descending into chaos or unnecessary slaughter. And in these final confrontations, human ingenuity was showcased on a galactic scale. Orbital defenses reconfigured dynamically, weapon systems adapted in real time to counter alien tactics, AI-driven command networks predicted enemy movements before they were executed, and elite ground forces conducted simultaneous planetary operations that liberated worlds thought lost, all while coordinating with allied species who now trusted human leadership implicitly. And as the dust settled across the final battlefields, the Council was left humiliated, their fleets decimated, and their authority shattered, forced to acknowledge that their assumptions about human weakness had been catastrophic miscalculations, and the galaxy witnessed not only the destruction of arrogance but the emergence of humanity as a force defined by intellect, strategy, resilience, and honor. And in the aftermath, humans focused on rebuilding, stabilizing liberated systems, and establishing alliances based on mutual respect rather than fear, sending a clear message to every civilization that the era of dismissing Earth as inferior was over, that humans were not merely survivors of war but architect of galactic order, capable of unmatched coordination, foresight, and judgment. And as humans looked to the stars, their influence stretched across systems once thought beyond their reach, the lessons of the war etched into the consciousness of all who had doubted them, ensuring that for generations to come, humanity will be remembered as a species that had transformed conflict into a masterclass of strategy, diplomacy, and controlled power, proving beyond any shadow of doubt that underestimation of Earth and its people came with consequences so severe that no galactic council, fleet, or species would ever dare make the same mistake again. And in the quiet aftermath, humans continued to innovate, plan, and unify, not for further conquest, but for the understanding that their potential, once overlooked and ridiculed, had now reshaped the galaxy forever, leaving an enduring legacy of capability, honor, and the unmistakable truth that humanity was a species whose strength could not be ignored, denied, or defeated.